The First Step by Leo Tolstoy. Chapter 7. The delusion that a man can give himself to his desires, call such a life good, and still lead a good, useful, just, and loving life, is so astonishing that later generations, I think, will simply fail to understand what the people of our time meant by the words, a good life, when they said that gluttons, the pampered, and the lustful were living one. Set aside our habitual view of life for a moment, and look at it. I will not even say from the Christian standpoint, but from the pagan one, from the lowest demands of plain justice, and you will see that no good life is possible here at all. For any man in our world, I will not say to begin a good life, but even to move a little way toward one, he must first stop living an evil life. He must begin to tear down the conditions of evil in which he stands. How often you hear it, as an excuse for not changing our bad way of living, that an act out of step with ordinary life would be unnatural, would look ridiculous, would seem like a wish to show off, and therefore would not be a good act at all. That argument seems purpose-built to keep people from ever changing their lives. If our whole way of life were good, just, and kind, then indeed only an act in step with it would be good. But if life is half good and half bad, then an act out of step with it has exactly as much chance of being good as of being bad. And if the whole way of life is bad and wrong, then a man living that life cannot do a single good deed without breaking with its ordinary course. He can do a bad deed without disturbing the flow of that life. He cannot do a good one. A man living our life cannot live well until he steps out of the conditions of evil in which he stands. He cannot begin doing good without ceasing to do evil. A man living in luxury cannot live a good life. All his attempts at good deeds will come to nothing until he changes his life, until he does the work that stands first in order before him. A good life by the pagan view, and still more by the Christian one, is measured by one thing only, and can be measured by nothing else: the ratio in the mathematical sense of a man's love of self to his love of others. The less love of self, with all the care, labor, and demands on others that it breeds, and the more love of others, with all the care and labor for them that flows from it, the better the life. So all the wise men of the world have understood the good life, and all true Christians, and so the simplest people understand it too. The more a man gives to others and the less he demands for himself, the better he is. The less he gives and the more he demands, the worse. Move the fulcrum of a lever from the long end toward the short one, and you do not just lengthen the long arm, you shorten the short one too. A man has one given capacity for love. If he increases his love and care for himself, he cuts down his power to love and care for others, and not only by the amount he has taken for himself, but by many times more. Instead of feeding others, a man eats too much, and by that, he not only loses the surplus he might have given away, but by his overeating, he unfits himself to care for others at all. To be able to love others in deed and not in word, we must stop loving ourselves in deed and not in word. What usually happens is the reverse. We believe we love others. We assure ourselves and everyone that we do, but we love them only in words and ourselves in deed. We may forget to feed others and put them to bed, ourselves never. So to truly love others indeed, we must learn to forget to feed ourselves and put ourselves to bed, just as we forget to do it for others. We say a good man, and he leads a good life about a person who is pampered and used to luxury. But such a person, man or woman, may have the most amiable traits, gentleness, kindliness, and still be unable to live a good life. Just as a knife of the finest make and steel cannot be sharp and cut until it is ground. To be good and live a good life means giving others more than you take from them. A pampered man used to luxurious living cannot do it. First, because he himself always needs a great deal, and not out of selfishness, but because he is used to it, and losing what he is used to is real suffering to him. Second, because by consuming everything he receives from others, he weakens himself and unfits himself for work, and so for serving others. A pampered man who sleeps long and soft, who eats and drinks rich and sweet and much, who dresses just so for warm weather and cold, who has never trained himself to the strain of work. We have grown so used to lying to ourselves, and so used to the lies of others. It profits us so much not to see through their lies, so that they will not see through ours, that we are not in the least surprised when the life of thoroughly self-indulgent people is called virtuous, sometimes even holy. A person, man or woman, sleeps on a sprung bed with 2 mattresses, 2 clean iron sheets, and feather pillows in their cases. By the bed lies a rug, so that the feet will not be cold on the floor, even though slippers stand right there. The other necessary conveniences stand there too, so that there is no need to go outside. The windows are curtained, so that no light can wake him, and he sleeps as long as sleep will come. Care has been taken that the room be warm in winter and cool in summer, that no noise disturb him, and no flies or other insects. While he sleeps, hot and cold water is made ready for his washing, sometimes for his bath or his shave. Tea and coffee are being prepared, the rousing drinks that are swallowed the moment he is up. The boots, shoes, and galoshes he dirtied yesterday, several pairs of them, are already being cleaned until they shine like glass without a speck of dust. The clothes he wore yesterday are brushed the same way, clothes not only for winter and summer, but for spring and autumn, for rainy, raw, and hot weather. Clean linen is being washed, starched, and ironed, with its buttons, studs, and buttonholes all checked over by people appointed to the task. If the man is energetic, he rises early, at 7 o'clock, which is still 2 or 3 hours after the people who have been making all this ready for him. Besides the clothes for the day and the covers for the night, there is clothing for the act of dressing itself, dressing gowns and slippers, and now the man goes to wash, to scrub, to comb, using several kinds of brushes and soaps, and a great deal of water and lather. Many Englishmen, and Englishwomen especially, are proud, for some reason, of being able to use up a great deal of soap and pour a great deal of water over themselves. Then the man dresses, combs his hair before a special mirror, apart from the mirrors hanging in nearly every room of the house, and takes the things he needs, spectacles most often, or a pince-nez, or a lorgnette. Then he stocks his pockets, a clean handkerchief to blow his nose in, a watch on a chain, though nearly every room he will enter has a clock, money of various kinds, small change, often in a special little device that saves the trouble of hunting for the right coin, and banknotes, cards printed with his name, which save the trouble of saying it or writing it, a notebook, a pencil. For a woman, the dressing is more elaborate still, the corset, the long hair dressed at length, the ornaments, ribbons, elastics, laces, hairpins, pins, brooches. Now everything is done and the day begins, usually with eating. Coffee or tea is drunk, with plenty of sugar. Rolls are eaten, bread of the finest wheat flour with plenty of butter, sometimes with pork. Most of the men smoke cigarettes or cigars over it, and read the fresh newspaper, just delivered. Then it is off to the office or on errands, or a drive in the carriages that exist expressly for carrying such people. Then comes lunch, of slaughtered animals, birds, and fish, and then a dinner of the same, 3 courses, if it is a modest one, with a sweet dish and coffee. Then cards, or music, or the theater, reading, or talk in soft-sprung armchairs, by the strengthened and softened light of candles, gas, or electricity. Then more tea, more food, supper, and back to bed, shaken up and made ready with clean linen, and the vessels emptied and clean. Such is the day of a man of modest life, a man of whom, if his temper is mild, and he has no habits particularly unpleasant to others, people say, he leads a good life. But a good life is the life of a man who does good to people. How can a man who lives like this, and is used to living like this, do good to people? Before doing good, he must stop doing evil. Count up all the evil he does to people, often without knowing it, and you will see how far he is from doing them any good. He would need to perform many, many heroic feats to atone for the evil he does. And a man unstrung by a life of indulgence has no feats in him. He could sleep more healthily, in body and soul alike, lying on the floor in his cloak, as Marcus Aurelius slept, and then all the labor spent on mattresses, springs, and feather pillows could be spared, along with the daily labor of the laundress, a woman, a weak creature with her woman's burdens, her childbearing and her nursing, who rinses the linen of this strong man. He could go to bed earlier and rise earlier, and the labor of curtains and evening light could be spared too. He could sleep in the same shirt he wore by day, step barefoot on the floor and walk out into the yard, wash in cold water at the well. In a word, he could live as all those live who do all this work for him, and then all this work for him could be spared. All the labor for his clothes, his refined food, his amusements could be spared too. How, then, is such a man to do good to people and live a good life without changing his pampered, luxurious way of living? No man with a moral sense, I will not even say a Christian, but anyone who merely professes humanity or plain justice, can help wanting to change his life and to stop using luxuries produced, as they sometimes are, at the cost of harm to other people. If a man honestly pities the people who work in the tobacco factories, the first thing he will do, without even thinking about it, is stop smoking. Because as long as he smokes and buys tobacco, he encourages the production that ruins their health. But the people of our time reason differently. They think up the most varied and cunning arguments, every argument except the one that occurs naturally to any simple man. By their reasoning, there is no need at all to abstain from luxuries. One can feel for the condition of the workers, make speeches and write books on their behalf, and go on using the very labor one declares is destroying them. By one line of reasoning, it is all right to use the ruinous labor of others, because if I do not use it, someone else will. Rather like arguing that I must drink this wine that harms me, because it has been paid for, and if I do not drink it, others will. By another line, using these people's labor for our luxury is actually very good for them, because it gives them money, that is, a livelihood. As if there were no way to give people a livelihood except by making them produce things that harm them and that we do not need. All of this comes from the same illusion, that a man can live a good life without first gaining, in its proper place in the order, the first quality a good life requires, and that first quality is self-restraint.